Now, where is... I can't see thee. No, I gotta fix this thing. Why are my dogs barking? Why? Francis, please. All right, folks. I hope everybody can hear me. If you cannot, please let me know. I've got the chat enabled in YouTube, so that's where I'll be taking questions this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and live stream this on the One Great Work Network. 1 second. Lots of things to do. Okay, start streaming, start recording. Wow, we've got a good group here already. That's awesome. Sweet. Let me make sure I can see all of the chat. All right, so Larkin says he hears me. Thank you for that confirmation. Awesome, and thank you, Tony. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. And my name is Patty, and I like to just kind of start out. Let's see. Okay, my producer just told me he's ready for me on the One Great Network side. So we will officially get started. And as always, I do record these, or they're recorded for me, and then I can re-upload them later. So, if you ever miss these, just check on my YouTube channel and my Odyssey channel, as that is the location where I will be uploading. I cannot talk. Uploading the recordings of these sessions. So, one thing I want to start with today, and then I'll take any of your questions that you have, is that I have been reading a lot of Rudolf Steiner and studying his many great works, mostly on the topic of spiritual science. And I came across something that and I don't know if he just shared this knowledge, or if he, in his very deep understanding of the spiritual world, if he kind of just intuitively kind of came up with this. But he referred to humans kind of in the hierarchy of the spiritual levels, as humans were the spirits of love and freedom. We as humans are spirits of love and freedom. And so what that means is that, we do live in a world of duality, and you can kind of think of love and freedom as both being positive aspects, but they're kind of opposite of one another. Love is the ultimate unity, so a lot of people want to partner with another person because they want that union. And that kind of is connected to the fact that we all came from one source. the Godhead, from, in creation, we all came from from one source. And then we divide it into the many. And many people are seeking to return to that oneness. And that's what love is. But what's kind of interesting is when humans were manifested, if you will, we were given free will and freedom. So we're trying to ascend, up this spiritual ladder, if you will. When they say, humanity, or we all need to ascend to a higher consciousness. And that's where the freedom aspect comes in. So we kind of have this free will to do whatever we want, and that can get us into trouble, So when you're choosing, things that are harmful to you, or you're making decisions that can result in harm or suffering for yourself or for others, other beings, this is where we learn. This is where we hopefully learn from our mistakes, and, we can make better decisions next time. And as a whole species, as a whole set of life beings on this planet, hopefully we can all ascend together. So I just, like to kind of share these things that give me a personal aha moment that, oh, we are spirits of love and freedom, and we're here to balance these two opposite yet positive aspects of what we are here to do, to express our free will, but also to love one another. And remember that when you look at another being, you're really just looking at yourself. You're looking at an aspect of yourself. And I feel like, we do attract other beings, because we need to learn lessons. There was another thing that was shared in my study of spiritual science, and I think it was the Dalai Lama was asked, who is your greatest spiritual teacher? The Dalai Lama is obviously a high spiritual level as far as a human is concerned. And, whether you align with that spiritual tradition or not, you can still respect people that, have gone deep into their own spiritual philosophy. And the Dalai Lama was asked, who is your greatest spiritual teacher? And he said, and this was a while ago, so I don't know if it was the current Dalai Lama, and I assume they change, but it's the same title. But the Dalai Lama stated, my greatest spiritual teacher is Mao Zedong. And I believe Mao was, great dictator. He was the reason why so many were suffering around him. And they're like, why would he be your greatest spiritual teacher? But because of that suffering, he had to change internally and develop so many new spiritual expressions to help him ascend. So oftentimes, we come across these challenges, whether it be, a person that we're conflicting with, or maybe it's a diagnosis, a disease of some sort, or it could be anything. We're here to learn from these things. And if we didn't have any of these issues that we were struggling with, we would have nothing to learn. So we have to struggle. We have to make mistakes. And that's, really has helped me kind of calm my nature of really wanting to, I think I mentioned this last week. I used to be, more than 10 years ago, when I first became a vegan, maybe it was 12, 13, 14 years ago. I can't remember. It was around 2008. But I used to be very militant because I thought everybody needs to be vegan because we're hurting these animals and we need to stop animal suffering, and it's the moral thing to do. And it really is not to harm other sentient beings because they have, every right to live and to express themselves in this physical plane. And so I was kind of militant about it. But you get to a point that everybody has to come to these impulses on their own. They have to feel it within and then express it. So anyway, I'm gonna come to the chat over here. I'm gonna put this over here. Oops. I think it's now, I was putting it in the field of like where my picture is, and maybe I can't do that. I wonder if I can put it over here. Will that work? No, I'll just put it back over here. All right, so you'll just have to see me from the side. I can't put it in front of me, unfortunately. So any questions? Let's see. Let me scroll down. So we've got a good group here. Sarah's here, Stephen is here. Love is freedom. Yeah, love is freedom in many respects, but like I said, there are two positive aspects that are kind of on opposite poles. Love is unity, and freedom is, the expression outward, like exploring, doing everything outward, not connecting necessarily, but, exploring your space and doing what it is you need to do to learn about this incarnation. Let's see, you're not in a high love space if you're making bad decisions. Well, bad decisions, I think, for some need to be made. If we all made good decisions, we would have nothing to learn from this incarnation. It's like when I'm teaching at the college I work at, I often tell my students, if there's something you don't understand, ask me or ask, and because if you knew everything, why would you be here, right? If we came to this earth and we knew how to live, there'd be no purpose to this. This is a school of helping us ascend to higher levels. Jeffrey Phillips is here, and Jeffrey Phillips has been entertaining me for quite a while. I don't think he realizes it, but I have been loving his videos where he has been reviewing Mark Passio's videos. And yeah, it's very beautiful to see a person like Mark Passio express with his divine anger, if you will, his frustration with many people in the so-called freedom and natural law movement, because it's quite frustrating to put forth this work to say, hey, we are here to be moral beings. There is objective morality. There is a difference between right and wrong, and yet many people are not aligning with that. So I can understand Mark Passio's frustration with that. All right, Stephanie is here, and I'm glad Stephanie came because I know last week you weren't able to find the chat option. Would you please, this is Stephanie's question. Would you please explain what is going on with elevated cholesterol during extended detox? Well, I do have a theory on that. When we're detoxifying and our cells are, first of all, with detoxification, as many people are aware, we are clearing out the interstitial spaces, releasing a lot of toxicity into our bodily fluids. Those fluids flow down. Ultimately, if it's internal toxicity, it's going to be excreted out through the kidneys into our urine. But as it's being pulled out, and it's floating, let's say, into the blood is feeling the impact of those toxins, if you will. And that could cause irritation and then maybe ultimately inflammation in the lining of our blood vessels. And sometimes when the blood vessels are inflamed, they like to soothe that inflammation with a barrier to protect them or to kind of, calm the inflammation. And often that protection is cholesterol or calcium or water. That's what Dr. Morse has taught, that those were the three ways in which the body tries to protect itself from inflammation: cholesterol, calcium, and water. And so if people are really toxic and they're pulling a lot of toxins or other congestive particles out into their blood, and you're getting kind of this large amount of toxicity all of a sudden that was stored away because your body was like, we can't deal with this now. we'll wait until there's a better time. And, with people's diets, if they keep putting crap in, there's never a better time. But they start pulling it out. And if you're really digging deep, if you're going on a high fruit diet, a diet maybe of juices, and you're really cleansing, you might experience some elevated cholesterol as your blood vessels are experiencing that inflammation. So I just tell people to kind of stick with it, just kind of continue progressing with the detox, and the inflammation will correct itself. It's like with, any kind of detoxification process, like when people go on extended juice cleanses, they will lose a lot of weight, and this is oftentimes when I'm working with men, they're sometimes very concerned about the excessive amount of weight loss that they experience because they get quite thin. And, men like to be big and bulky. But I've seen men lose a lot of weight, detoxify, remove the irritants or the inflammatory components that were creating whatever health concerns that they were dealing with. And then as soon as they get all of that out, they start rebuilding on the juices and they gain weight again. It's like going on, just a raw food diet. You kind of lose a lot of weight and then you can build back up on that same diet. It's like your body, which is more wise than our mind chatter. It knows exactly what to do. It knows how to flip the switch, and then you start building on that same type of diet. All right, so next question. And Stephanie writes again, thank you for sharing your vegan experience. Oh, you were an intense vegan as a teenager? Yeah. People didn't like me. I lost a lot of friends. I actually lost my best friend from college. She doesn't talk to me anymore. And, and this was like not too long ago, like within the last, I don't know, 10 years. We used to do a lot of things together, and I think I made one kind of comment when we were out, and she got angry when I said something about animal products. And it's sad, because I even 5 years ago, I was starting to kind of not be as critical, even though, you know, it's hard to see people eating living beings, because I love animals and I don't want to see them on a plate being, eaten when there are so many other healthier alternatives. But again, everybody has to learn this because every human being has free will and we have to respect that. That's one of the core principles that Rudolf Steiner very much aligns with, is that we have to let others make their own free will choice, because that's the spiritual, those are spiritual laws. And all of these governmental institutions that try to control their population, I think they're kind of being co-opted by other dark forces. All right. Hello, Rocky is here. And Surrender Birdie, hello. Rocky writes, do you, Paige, maybe that's do you have any recommendations on things to do if you're having a rough time with detox? Lots of people quit because they feel worse. Well, that's going to be the nature of detoxification. There are healing crises. I know I've experienced several that were kind of scary, that knocked me out. I remember when I first started really getting into, longer cleanses. There was my first one when I was doing like 6 months of nothing but fruit. And I started using some of the herbs, but incorrectly. I was using, what was it called? It wasn't GI Broom, because this is before I knew about Dr. Morse. I was using something analogous to GI Broom from Health Force Nutritionals, and I can't remember. It might have been called Intestinal Broom, where, like the GI Broom formula, it was pulling out a lot of toxins from the GI tract. The problem is that I should have coupled that with something to help my bowels move, or I should have done something like enemas, which I was doing none of that. And everything I pulled out, and it was probably a lot, because at that point I was in my, I think, mid to late 30s. I reabsorbed it all of that toxicity came back into my bodily fluids, and it just knocked me out. I was like bedridden for a couple of days. I had no energy. My legs felt like they couldn't move. I remember trying to walk up my steps and my legs were just so weak. And that was a detox event. I mean, the only thing I had done was I had been eating a bunch of fruit. So it's kind of one of these things that's scary, but usually with detox or healing crises, they're short-lived, and they come because you're making pretty deep changes to your physiology, drawing a lot of things out. So this is why I am a big fan of the herbal formulas, and working with a detox specialist can be very valuable because had I done that, I would not have made the mistake of using something to pull toxicity out without flushing it as well. You want to support the channels of elimination. You can't just be pulling and tugging out from the interstitial spaces. This is why Dr. Morse would always recommend, if you're going to use a lymphatic formula, use the kidney and bladder formulas as well, because you need to be helping the kidneys eliminate the toxicity when you're pulling on that congestion from your interstitial spaces. All right, Stephanie writes, is this the time with elevated liver enzymes like ALT? Is this the same with with elevated liver enzymes? There are, yeah, ALT, I'd have to look at which one that is. There are several liver enzymes that can be elevated when there is usually when the liver is experiencing stress, and the liver can like release these enzymes into the blood. And so if somebody's having a certain type of reaction, they might notice these changes in their blood work. I always take blood work with a grain of salt because you're taking a snapshot in time of what's going on in that person's body, and sometimes it changes daily. So, but it's good to look at it every now and then. Rocky is writing, after detoxing, if you had a really terrible diet in the past, do you recommend doing a liver cleanse that involves olive oil flushes where people can see huge gallstones? Well, a liver cleanse can be quite beneficial. It does flush the hepatic ducts and the bile ducts, which are leaving the liver and gallbladder and sending all that bile into the small intestine. It can flush all of that out. And that's a good, way to cleanse. There are times, though, when I wouldn't necessarily recommend a liver flush. And so sometimes it's good to do kind of a prolonged juice or fruit cleanse first, especially, consuming a lot of apples. Apples have malic acid, and malic acid is really good at softening the gallstones, because if you start doing a liver flush and you have a lot of, let's say, gallstones in these small ducts, and they're stuck there and they're kind of agglomerated and hard and they can't be removed, that can cause a lot of intense pain. So having a softening experience with the help of the fruits, I would highly recommend. And apples are kind of at the top there. So many people, when you look at some of the natural healers from way back when, in the era of like Arnold Ehret, even, Herbert Shelton, these people that ran like healing sanitariums, they often recommended these kind of prolonged fruit cleanses. And they had a remarkable experiences. Johanna Brandt, who wrote The Grape Cure. I mean, if you haven't read that book, I definitely would recommend it. It's pretty cool to see just how simple healing was back in the day. We complicate everything these days, and it's not that complicated. Stephanie writes, the more, let's see, hold on, make sure I got, yeah, so hopefully I answered that, Rocky, for you. Stephanie writes, the more spiritual I feel, the less vegan I identify as. Yeah, the term vegan, I don't mind it. I like it, actually. I don't mind being a vegan. I actually have a big ass vegan sticker on my car. And when I park at the college, all my students see it. I say hi to my students. They see my vegan sticker. I also have a fruitarian sticker on my car, too. Part of me wants to get like a government is slavery sticker on my car, but I'm not sure how. Sometimes I park right next to where the president of the college parks, and I say hi to her, but I don't know if she would appreciate if I had a government is slavery sticker. I know these governmental institutions and, a lot of people I work with, they're pro-government. I remember, when was it? Was it 2020? I guess during the last election, and everybody had their I voted stickers, and I know who they all voted for because it's academia, right? And people ask me, did you vote today? Where's your sticker? I'm like, I don't vote. And I just leave it at that. Don't vote, don't believe in voting, don't think it's helpful. You're voting for the lesser of two evils, and it's lesser of two evils is still evil. Anywho, we won't go down the political rant. But aligning with any group can sometimes, like a political group, it can be somewhat confining. So as we become more spiritual, we realize, like I said, we're spirits of love and freedom. So we have the freedom to explore. And it's like, trying on clothes, explore different groups. I mean, I went through a phase of being an atheist, and it did not feel right. It was like putting on really tight pants. It felt really uncomfortable. But I was this was a while ago. I was dating this guy who was an atheist, and he was explaining why he was an atheist, and I'm like, okay, I can maybe appreciate that a little bit. So I kind of tried to be open to it, but like I said, it did not sit well with me. And I remember right before he and I broke up, I had this shamanic journey experience that proved to me the spirit world is real, and it's something that we do need to um, take into heart. Which is why, again, I really like Steiner. I'm studying, how to know higher worlds, how to connect to spiritual beings, the new clairvoyance of learning how to connect to these subtle energies that are all around us. It's like being surrounded by something but not noticing any of it, like a fish in water. Does a fish in water constantly think, oh, I'm in water? Unlike us in air, right? It's all around us and it's affecting us. I mean, we need the oxygen in the air to, get into our blood and help us produce energy. And then we need to get rid of the CO2, but it's all around us and we just don't see it. I don't see O2 molecules floating around me. That doesn't mean they're not there. Same thing with spiritual beings. But having this shamanic journey, and I didn't use any kind of hallucinogen, I didn't use ayahuasca. All I used was my breath and my mental focus. And it was profound and deep, and it's something I will never forget. And I'm trying to get back there, but I'm trying to understand it. I want to come into it from a perspective of greater appreciation as opposed to just doing the practice without the true understanding. Okay. Can you still detox while taking pharmaceuticals? I heard you can. I don't take pharma, but I have family members that do. Well, I think that there's a gradient there. I think it's, keep in mind, I am not a medical doctor, and I'm just sharing what I think is a good idea for myself, and you can take it as you want. But I think, if I were on pharmaceutical medications, my ultimate goal would be to get off of them. Mostly because I don't like to have to be dependent on anything. I don't want to have to go to the pharmacy to pick something up on a regular basis. And a lot of these medications, not all of them, but the majority of them, they're not natural. I mean, you do have like natural synthetic medications, and some of them are synthetic, some of them are from like animal sources, which if you're vegan, that could be something that you don't align with. like hormones made from an animal's body or taken from an animal's body. But, there are natural medications like insulin that the pancreas produces, and people that have a pancreas that's not producing insulin, sometimes they need to use the insulin, hopefully while they're trying to heal their pancreas to start producing it on their own, right? And depending on how damaged they are, I think it would be somewhat unethical to say, oh, you need to get off of insulin and just let your pancreas start working on its own. That could kill them, right? That could put them into a state of ketoacidosis and put them into a coma. So, there are these gradations of, taking pharmaceuticals and, what type you're taking, what's it for. But, depending on the health issue, it's still a good idea to optimize bodily function no matter what. So even if you're on medication, you can't get off of it, at least try to strengthen your organs and tissues so that they're working optimally. And, if you're doing that and you're taking something like a hypertensive drug, high blood pressure medication, you have to be very careful because when you cleanse, I mean, getting off of high blood pressure medication is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's one of the easier types of drugs to come off of when you're changing your diet and lifestyle. So you want to be careful and titrate off of it slowly. And it would be beautiful if we all had physicians that would help us do that, And there are physicians out there that do that. I mean, I know my personal physician. I actually had a doctor's appointment today and I had to get blood work. You can see where they put the needle in my little antecubital fossa, my median cubital vein. But I had blood work done today, and my doctor is a homeopath. He is an anthroposophical medical doctor. He too is in alignment with Rudolf Steiner, and he and I had a discussion of Rudolf Steiner today. It's very pleasant. It was a very pleasant office visit because he asks me questions about my spiritual development. He's just not asking me about my health because he understands the connection between spirit, emotion, and physical health. And he did a checkup on me, but these are the kind of doctors I want to go to. And no, my insurance doesn't cover it. I get insurance through the college I teach at, but they do submit it to my insurance, so that at least it goes against my, out-of-network physicians, which, I mean, that deductible is so high, it doesn't even matter really, because it's like I have to spend like $10,000 out of network to start getting any kickbacks for that, but it's all craziness. But I can't remember where we were going with this. Let's see, questions. Yeah, I don't like either candidates. Yeah. I mean, what is there? There's Trump and there's Biden and there's, I think, RFK Jr. Not that I'm going to go out and vote, but at least, he's probably more in line with a lot of the things I think are important. But who knows? You never know. Can you trust any politician? I mean, people that like want to go into politics, I question, that impulse. I question that desire. Like, why do you want to make rules for others to follow? I don't get it. Okay, where am I? I've noticed most of the raw vegan influencers with large followings are Trump supporters. All right. I mean, Alex Jones is a Trump supporter. I think Alex Jones is cute. He's like a chubby little guy that has just like this passion, but he's also kind of on the Trump train. So who knows? But I will at times listen to Alex Jones. Mostly if I just want to know what's going on in the world, I'd rather get the news from Alex Jones than anybody else. Of people that talk about things. I listened to it today. Alex Jones was interviewing Tucker Carlson, and it was a very interesting conversation. Tucker Carlson was talking about what he thinks is the reason why all of this chaos in the world, like, we're at the brink of nuclear war, apparently. I mean, I didn't know that. This is why sometimes I check in, right? Like, what's going on? Just because I want to know, like, what's going on in the world, right? What on earth is happening? And so apparently we're at the brink of World War III or nuclear war. I think Russia, if I'm not mistaken, just put some nuclear submarine um something or other at Cuba. So we're like right there at Florida where they could like obliterate all of the East Coast. And so Tucker Carlson was contemplating this predicament and the Ukraine war and everything else, the open borders, all of the nonsense taking place. And he's like, why are they doing this? Why is there this condoned chaos that is being allowed to take place? And he thinks that there are dark spiritual forces that are in control. And I really appreciated that he said that because, studying Steiner, there are spiritual beings and they do influence us. And this is why I think it's very helpful for humans to connect with spiritual beings, to develop that ability to become, if you will, clairvoyant or to become aware, if and a beautiful way of developing this skill is to quiet the mind. I have been practicing meditation, transcendental meditation, where twice a day for 20 minutes each time, I just quiet my mind. And I, say a mantra and I just repeat it over and over and over and over again. And it just subtly kind of starts to dissipate. And you want to get to the state where it's like no mantra, no thought. Obviously, when you're doing that, thoughts will arise. But as I study transcendental meditation, I learned that the thoughts are just really detoxifications, emotion or mental detox, where it's kind of clearing some kind of um, aberration in your mental field and it's starting to dissipate. And when it dissipates, it kind of catches on to a thought form that then you become aware of. And so you just have to let the thoughts come to your knowing and then let it go away. And then you get back to the mantra. So I've been doing that. And I will say, since I've been meditating twice a day, 20 minutes each time, it has changed me profoundly. I won't say it's helped me see spiritual beings, but I'm hoping that this practice with other practices that I'm learning that were taught by Rudolf Steiner in his spiritual science teachings will help me become more aware, because I think Tucker Carlson is right. There are dark forces. They're probably influencing the powers that should not be, the dark occultists that do a lot of evil on this planet, the the painful things they do to children. I mean, you hear these stories about at the border, them, getting children here and they're taken to who knows where, right? How are they, what are they doing to these poor souls? I mean, that angers me. I mean, seeing children suffer, seeing animals suffer. No being should be suffering. We should not be allowing any of this to happen. And it seems like it's just, oh, this is fine. This is okay. This is nonsense. So when Tucker Carlson started talking about that, I'm like, can I trust Tucker Carlson? I don't know. He's seems a lot better than a lot of the idiots that are on the boob tube. Well, I guess he was fired, and who knows if that was, a stunt or if that was a real thing. I don't know. I don't have all of the answers, but he seems kind of, in that respect, talking about dark forces, dark spiritual beings. I would agree with that. I think there is darkness, affecting many people on our planet. All right. Love the tight pants analogy. Yeah. Well, there was who was it? Jimmy Fallon. Not that I watch TV. I haven't had a TV since 2012, but didn't Jimmy Fallon have a skit on a show called Tight Pants? And he like wore tight pants, and then Will Ferrell came on with tight pants, and then they all started singing. So that made me think of tight pants when you said that. But yeah, you try things on, you see how you feel. Like, as how do I feel being a Republican? How do I feel being a Democrat? Maybe I don't want to be either. How does that feel? I was actually a Republican when I was 8 years old. I had a crush on Michael J. Fox from Family Ties, and I thought I wanted to be like him. I started carrying a briefcase to school because I wanted to be like Michael J. Fox, Alex P. Keaton. And so I told my mom and dad I was Republican. My mom at the time was a Democrat, and she was like shaking her head, but it's like I'm 8. I can't vote. I just thought, ooh, this thing. And then I thought Richard Nixon was really cool because he liked Richard Nixon. And so I really got into Richard Nixon, and I wanted to write reports on Richard Nixon. And yeah, that's when I was 8. And you grow out of these things, right? So I tell, people that, oh, I used to be a Republican when I was a child, but I grew out of it. Interestingly enough, I was never a Democrat. Never tried those pants on. I think they were just going to be too tight. They wouldn't even fit. Okay. Let's see. I'm a vegan. What are your thoughts on glandulars? Are they necessary? A detox specialist recommended it for me for my adrenals, and I did not take it. Well, I mean, I think there are other things you can do to support your adrenal glands. Glandulars are an option, and detox specialists will often recommend them because they are powerful. But I think that it's got to be your call. There's herbs that support the adrenal glands. You can look at adaptogenic substances. There is actually what is it? Dragon Herbs is a company, and they specialize in Chinese herbs, Dragon Herbs. And they have an incredibly powerful formula called Super Adaptogen from Dragon Herbs. And I've been doing testing on it. I've been learning something called physical radiesthesia. It's kind of like muscle testing where I can use it's kind of like a pendulum, but it's not really like a pendulum in the way many people use pendulums. And I've been testing it on people I know. I'm not at the point where I use it with my clients yet, but if I tell them I'm going to do it, I get their permission and we can check things out. But it's been testing really great for everybody that I test on it with. And so look at that. And I've been taking it, and I think it has given me some extra energy because I tend to have, lower systolic pressure, lower blood pressure. And that has helped it come up a little bit. And it's also helped other things metabolically. So Super Adaptogen by Dragon Herbs. They seem like a pretty reputable company. But that was brought to my attention by my teacher who's teaching me spiritual science. So he's really into that as well. All right, my aunt is on anti-anxiety pharma, not sure which one, but she can't function without it. She goes into panic very easily. She wants to detox, but she feels she needs it. She feels she needs it until she feels better from detox. Well, all I know is that some of the hardest medications to detox from are the ones that affect the mind. And, those anxiety medications are pretty tough. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and get through it. But, people can have very scary types of withdrawal effects from some of them. And let's see, Tad is here. Hello. Let's see, I skipped yours. What do you think about live blood analysis? Do you think it's beneficial? I've never really had it performed on my own blood, but it looks interesting. I mean, the cool thing about live blood analysis, it's live. It's not like you're just taking, you are drawing the blood from a sample, so it's out of the body. So the best way, if we had the mechanism to do so, is to look at the blood within the body, right? Because that's going to be true live blood analysis. Because I think blood within a blood vessel of a living being has a life force to it. And I think it behaves differently when it's outside of a living being. That if we're getting into again, spiritual aspects of all of this. But with live blood analysis, you're able to visualize at least the movement of the blood. And I think that's somewhat beneficial. Because you can see, how if the red blood cells are kind of coagulating together, or are they more dispersed? They've come up with some pretty interesting thing during the pandemic when they were analyzing blood and started seeing things that shouldn't be there in the people that, had the what. Someone told me on one of my comments from last week that I should call it the Jabba Dabba Doo. The COVID's Jabba Dabba Doo. All right. But yeah, Tad, I think live blood analysis is interesting. I think I'd like to see what my blood looks like. Stephanie writes, I appreciate Tucker Carlson even more after watching his Joe Rogan interview. I thought it was quite spiritual. Oh, I haven't watched that. I haven't really gotten into Joe Rogan too much. I mean, I know a lot of people like him. And I know, Stephanie, I think you shared a Joe Rogan interview with me. I have not yet watched that. I've been slammed with work, I will say that. And it's been, I am teaching this summer. I've got a lot of pots in the fire, if you will, and I'm trying to do juggle a lot of different things, but I need to start making time to kind of watch things that are outside of what I do on the normal day to day. All right. How do you find information on transcendental meditation? TM.org, just capital T, capital M.org, TM.org. Transcendental meditation is amazing. I'm really finding a lot of benefit from it. It was developed by Maharshi. I don't know how to say his last name. He's a Indian spiritual being, and he's passed away. He influenced the Beatles and many other people. Jerry Seinfeld practices TM twice a day, and a lot of people that have manifested a lot of success in their life, they practice TM. And what it does is it creates a space that I think allows one to see things more clearly. And keep in mind, I have not been practicing TM that long, but in the short time I've been practicing it, I've noticed some positive effects. So I think it's just tm.org. I think there is a feed to it. The school that I'm affiliated with actually covered my cost, so I don't have to pay for it. But I want to say it's like $300, but really the training was amazing. I mean, most major cities in the United States have a TM center. So in the city I live in, there's a TM center. There was kind of a free introductory meeting about if you want, for people that wanted to purchase it. The guy that ran that center, he explained, what would go on, and he was very willing to, share his time and answer people's questions. And then, when you actually sign up, you go there and you have a very sacred first transcendental meditation experience where you bring like something to honor Maharshi, the guy that first invented TM, or first, maybe coined it. I don't know if he invented it. He might have gotten it from another guru, if you will. So like I brought flowers and some fruit, and you put it on the altar, and then the TM guy says things, I think, in I don't know what language it is, maybe Hindu. Is Hindu a language? Oh my gosh, I can't even think. But anyway, he spoke a different language, and then he gave me my mantra, which is supposed to be a sacred mantra that only you should know. They recommend that you not share the mantra you were given. And then I just sat and for 20 minutes, and he burned some incense, by the way, and for 20 minutes I just started repeating the mantra and my mind quieted. And then that first like week and a half, he checks in with you, and then you can go for like a 4-day in a row training where you go to the center every day for 4 days and you watch some videos and whatnot. Because of my work schedule, I couldn't do that. So they have an app on my phone where Ralph Nader, who runs the TM.org, who runs the Transcendental Meditation, he kind of explains it all to you, and it's very interesting. And the guy, Ralph Nader, it's not Ralph Nader, the old school politician, is a different Ralph Nader, I believe. Or is it Roger Nader? Maybe a totally different guy. Let me see if I can, let's do this. TM, all right, tm.org. Yeah, I'm double checking to make sure tm.org is the correct, it is the correct website, yeah. And then when you go to tm.org, you will see, once you go to that website, it says right on top on the right, upper right-hand corner, find an instructor, book a free session. I mean, it kind of looks cultish when you first get into it, but it's really very relaxing. Whatever. Maybe it's a cult. I don't know. I haven't had any Kool-Aid yet. How do you find, okay, that's the last one. Love your jumper, my jumper. Do you mean my shirt? This shirt? This is, it kind of is like a jumper. I got it from What on Earth is Happening. And his t-shirts, he's always out of women's t-shirts. So a lot of times I have to get the men's t-shirts, and then I have to get them in like a larger size than I wear. So maybe I should cinch it and put a little belt, make it like a little skirt. I love that your shamanic experience didn't involve external chemistry. You made your own. Yeah, the mind and the breath are very powerful. And I think that's the original, medication for the soul, mind and breath. It's all breath, really, when it comes down to it. And let's see. I stand for truth, freedom of speech, and freedom of choice, not politics. Beautifully said, Tad. I agree. Yeah, politics, it's like a box that confines you. And, I think there's agendas with a lot of political groups. So, some people start aligning with things they may not necessarily agree with. You have to remember, each of us came to this incarnation, but before coming to this incarnation, we had things we needed to accomplish. And so many humans are not accomplishing what they came here to develop. We need to develop the subtle bodies to help us, again, connect to spiritual beings, to ascend, transcend. It's really important work. And what we develop in this incarnation, those subtle organs that are newly developing, we take those with us after we pass. Otherwise, they stay in a vestigial stage and they dissipate at death if we don't strengthen them. And I think that's what a lot of, what's going on today. They're distracting us so much from what our true work should be. So many distractions, cell phones, the television, the television, the junk food that disrupts our mental chemistry. All of this is taking us off our spiritual path. And it's a shame, because humanity should be much more ascendant now than we are. I mean, there are very wise beings out there. Some of the people that I consider teachers, I mean, obviously Dr. Robert Morse, I consider him, an ascended being, if you will. He's deeply spiritual. And when I speak to him about it, and I know a lot of people really love hearing his talks on spirituality, but he sees the suffering, and he always comes back to those that are at that physical level of suffering, trying to help them get out of that. Because you have to get out of that level of physical suffering before you can clear the congestion from the mind, so that you can be more receptive to the spiritual truths. But another great spiritual teacher is Dr. Robert, another Robert, like Dr. Robert Morris, but Dr. Robert Gilbert, who runs Vesica Institute. Vesica Institute is a great place to go if you want to learn the spiritual sciences. That's where I'm learning spiritual science, and I'm also learning some of the vibrational sciences, and I'm studying biogeometry there. This is a biogeometry pendant that is very powerful. I actually gifted one of these to Dr. Morse recently because when I first started wearing this, it was like a shift happened to me. Um, and then here's like another, the L pendant, which I wear with it. Another, very, the angle of this is very important. And, in spiritual science, you learn that angles and angels have meaning. And then like this necklace, it has sacred numbers, the number of something. So there's like 16 beads, 16 and 19 and 28. These are numbers that not just the number itself, but the number of an item, and having that many of a certain thing, that's spiritually significant and it's very good energy. So you learn to surround yourself with these positive influences in your body to help you communicate with the spirits all around us. And it does pay off. I mean, I've noticed a big shift since I've started incorporating a lot of this. And it's so very subtle. It's so very subtle. But if I look at where I was even 5 years ago, I mean, you can probably look at some of my earlier podcast videos, even on this YouTube channel. I've shifted quite a bit even since then. All right. What are your thoughts on parasites negatively affecting mental health? I'm pretty sure they can do that, Haven't there been studies where they have like shown how parasites can control certain maybe insects or maybe even certain animals and make them do things that lead to their death? It's crazy. Jumper. Oh, jumper is a sweater. Thank you for that, Rocky. I did not know. Rocky, are you from the United States? Because I don't know. I didn't realize that jumper and sweater were used interchangeably. But, I learn something new every day. I didn't see the link to work with you on your last video. Well, if you look at, oh, it's not here. Yeah, so on this, let's see. I'll put it in the comment box for you. Okay. So here you go. Here's my website. Oops, if I can get it in there. And when you go to my website, you should see, I think there's a link for consultations. So you can find that. And I have, different options. You can do like I have two options for an initial consultation, so with or without iris analysis. But honestly, a lot of times, if you get it without the iris analysis, it is cheaper. I can still look at your eyes. I just don't write up a full report on it because writing the full report and documenting all of my findings and giving it to you, that's just a lot of extra work. So that's why that's more expensive. But I still can look at your irises if you want to send them to me. Let's see. Do you know Brother Air? Is this Brother Air asking me this? Who is friends with Professor Spira? If it's that same Brother Air, and do I know Brother Air? I don't know Brother Air personally, but I have benefited from many of his discussions with Professor Spira, and I think he is a wise soul. So I like to feel like I know certain individuals through what they have shared and what they have taught me. Let's see. Dr. Morse is like a celebrity to me. Actors and influencers don't do it for me. Yeah, I remember when I first met Dr. Morse in person. He was a big celebrity to me as well. I feel that way. And I remember when I went to down to Florida. This was back in 2016, I think, and I he had talked about he was looking for a counselor, and I called up the clinic. I talked to Shannon and she's like, well, yeah, come on down and interview. And so I flew down there and I met Dr. Morse, I met Marcy, bless her soul, and I met why am I drawing a blank on the guy that I met that worked there? He doesn't work there anymore. I can't think of his name. I feel terrible. But I met all of them, and because I had watched them on YouTube, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like in Hollywood with all of these cool people. Felt the same way when I first met Mark Passio. Mark Passio came to the city I live in that I live in currently, to give a all-day seminar on streetwise spirituality. And then there was an after party that I was invited to, and it was amazing talking to him, and his late girlfriend who passed away, unfortunately. But that was just a fun, fun, fun day. I loved that. That was cool stuff. Let's see. Rocky writes, I'm in Arizona. I just work with many people in the UK. Ah. And then Tad writes, what do you think about the metaphysical properties of crystals, gems, and minerals? What do you think about wearing them and using them during meditation? I think they're amazing. I mean, I'm wearing a crystal here. These are all crystals, obviously. You know, clear crystal. They all have properties. I am not an expert. Robert Gilbert, who teaches spiritual science, he has a whole course on crystals, their properties, how to use them in spiritual practices. But, you know, when you look at the world of creation, you know, and everything came from the one. I mean, everything came from the one. The elementals, the living beings, everything. And crystals are kind of they're pretty amazing beings. You know, learning to connect with these non-living entities is something that we can learn and we can be influenced by and gain subtle energies by working with. So I definitely think it's amazing to explore the crystal kingdom, the world of crystals. I think Micah has a class on crystals in the Dr. Morse's school and the School of Natural Healing or the Health. What is it called? I teach there and I can't even think of the name, but you know, Dr. Morse's school, that school. Okay. Do you think Orgonite protects against EMF? I've heard, I think I have, I don't know. I think I purchased Orgonite, but I don't know if it's real Orgonite because I got it off of Amazon. So I'm not an expert on Orgonite, but I've heard good things about it. You forgot today is Friday. I never forget Fridays because, you know, I teach Monday through Thursdays and I teach long days and Fridays are always welcomed. I love Fridays. I sell crystals personally. Thank you. Create what you want from them. Oh, okay. You're probably working in a symbiotic relationship with the crystals. People do think Lemuria heals bones, but I don't think that's true. Lemuria, is Lemuria a crystal? I think of Lemuria as being kind of like during the time of Atlantis. Michael Tsarion speaks of this in his teachings, but during the time of Atlantis, you know, where you had where the humanity, you know, with Adam and Eve, there was the fallen humans that ate into the apple of knowledge. Is that how it goes? Anyway, um, Michael Tsarion speaks of this, and then there were like the beings that saw that humans were being manipulated genetically, and some of them moved to Lemuria. Don't quote me on any of this. I need to go back and revisit these teachings. Oh, you meant Lemurian. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. All right, folks. Well, it is 8 o'clock and my live stream is over at 8 o'clock. But I thank you all for being here this evening with me. And again, I will be here next Friday. Let's see, I walk barefoot on the grass. I know there's a little bit of delay, so if there's any last minute questions, I'll try to get them in. Yes, walking barefoot I think is amazing. I need to do more of that. But I'm going to end it here. Oh, Tad has one more question. I love to use, is it Sungite? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that, to protect me against EMS and a lot of electronic pollution. I'm also in the process of starting a business selling gemstone jewelry. So that is so cool, Tad. Please let me know when you start that business. I think crystals, again, are amazing. I have multiple crystals. You can see I have some right back here. These are crystals that are massage stones. And then I have the ones I hold in my hand. Um, Indigo Gabbro is really good for, removing toxicity. And then that's rose quartz, which is an amplifier of energy that I use sometimes, when I need more energetic, um, I don't know what to call it, but inside of me to connect with the subtle energies, sometimes the rose quartz is very powerful. It has iron in it, which is, a powerful component, in our blood and in our muscle cells. Iron does some pretty important things. All right. Well, I am going to, like I said, call it a day. Thank you all for being here this evening, and I will see you next Friday. Blessings to all, and to all a beautiful rest, and I hope you